Everybody, and welcome to the webinar. The Facebook Live. Tell me, when you think about your dreams, would you love to know how to actually develop a business so that you could list it on the stock exchange? Is that how big you want your business to be? Well, my name is Glenn Kirkwood, aka That Referral Guy. I help business owners use a referral system to grow their business. In today's promise, I'm going to be interviewing a guest, Peter Johnson, who did that at the age of 28. Amazing. Good morning, Peter. Are you there?
Good morning, Glenn. Yes, I most certainly am. And I'm wearing a collared shirt for the first time in 6 weeks.
Mate, I'm really excited to have you on board. You're relatively new into my space. But after reading your bio and that sort of thing, I was really impressed to list a business at the age of 28 on the stock exchange. Was that always something that you wanted to do?
No, not at all. No, it wasn't. But the way it worked, that's what happened. An offer was put in front of me that I said, yeah, this works. This really does work. A lot of people have been approaching me to buy my business. I was quite young in the industry, and a lot of competitors thought, well, hey, look at this. This guy's in his 20s and he could take over from me. But there was only one person that actually said, I will keep the staff on. Everybody else just wanted to buy me and then turf the staff. And this one person said, oh, look, yeah, merge with us. You can keep all your staff. We're going to take another guy on board and we're backdoor listing ourselves. And we did it.
Hey, as I said before, I know you through a mutual friend of ours, Grant. But for those listeners who haven't met you before, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you?
Well, my name's Peter Johnson. I'm an accountant. That's usually how I describe myself. Started my career as a trainee accountant, got bored, joined the army, went through Dunfroon, got out of Dunfroon, set up a business that serviced accountants. And I thought, what's the easiest way to know your clients is to become one. So I went back, studied accounting, worked for accounting firms, and so built that business. I've sold a few businesses, and when you sell one, you're not allowed to compete with the people that bought you. So you got to think of something new. So I've kept doing new things and thankfully been able to sell them as well. So now I'm in about my fifth iteration of a business where now I just do online training for accountants. So I teach them mainly skills about self-managed superannuation funds.
Okay. Why do you do it though? Why are you teaching accountants?
I think they're brilliant. I think they're brilliant clients. I love the self-managed super fund topic. The law changed, and this is going to bore a lot of your clients, but the law changed in 1994. I had heaps of accountants in 1994. They brought in a new act. And so a lot of accountants said, well, Pete, we need help with this. We need help with this. So I went and studied it, as you can see behind me. And so I just have a passion for that topic. And as you know, I'm still studying. I just finished a master's. I've already made inquiries about enrolling in my next one that will start later on this year. So I just really love learning, and therefore teaching comes out of that.
It's a brilliant gift to have that brain that just wants the thirst for knowledge and putting it under, I wouldn't say pressure, but putting it under examination to see how you go. As accountants, all you serve?
Well, I've got a few financial planners, but primarily it's accountants. And if financial planners want to learn my topic, then they're more than welcome to. But it's, my training is geared to accountants. I don't market to financial planners, but there's a lot of people that are both, or there's planners that work inside of accounting firms. I am engaged by some big financial planning groups to give technical presentations. So, the main group, they have about 800 advisors. So there's 800 financial planners around the country. 80% of those planners are also accountants. So they're listening to me on a regular basis anyway.
I know in my previous business that a lot of financial planners had either attached themselves to accountants or were working within an accounting office. So I know that the relationship needs to be really strong between those two industries anyway. What's the biggest challenge that you've got in your business? And tell us a little bit how you overcome it.
Actually, and I know you're not expecting this answer, but my biggest challenge is doing the work. And what do I mean by that? My business at the moment is just me. So I'm down to a sole trader with no staff. And a business still has a lot of hack work to do. There's systems, putting systems in place. There's accounting, there's paying the bills and all that sort of stuff. I love to be out in front of people. I love selling, I love presenting, and that's what I want to do. But a real business has systems. Look at McDonald's. It's a champion business, and it's run by teenagers because they have a manual, that's got to get this right. That's that thick. And if you read that manual, you can go and run a McDonald's store. So, I need a manual in my business, and I've got to put that manual together, and that is not my personal skill set. Whereas other people might be really good at putting the manual together, but don't give me a client. I don't want to have to talk to people, and you need to merge. If you're on your own, you've got to do both. So that's something that I have to get out of my comfort zone and do. And the other thing is just getting clients. I think everybody, we need to get clients. And so what do we do to get clients?
Systems really come down to everything. I mean, even putting together this show from getting quality speakers, giving them information on how the show is going to work and the technical aspect of the software that you might use. There's a system in everything that you do. Of course, if you've got to repeat the process twice, you might as well take the time out to write a system for that. So you've got pretty good now at developing those sorts of systems, working out what you're good at, what you're not good at, and either bringing people in or learning a skill. You love learning.
No, I haven't. I'm still not good at doing that system thing. And so I'm more than happy to engage people to do that. I mean, I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of, employ people that are better than you to do what you're not good at. And I see too many business owners that try to save a couple of dollars by doing it themselves, but it's not their skill set, whereas they should be out there doing what they're good at and then paying people that have us. And if your skill set's not selling, then employ someone to sell. If your skill set is not putting systems together, employ someone to put your systems together for you. Yeah.
Well, you've definitely learned that your skill set is actually going through, I guess, tax law or understanding self-managed super funds, and then advising accountants on how they should actually structure a good self-managed super fund business.
No, well, it's not really about structuring the business. My training is all technical. So, it's the Superannuation Industry Supervision Act. It's a big act. There's plenty of sections. It's 900 sections long. It's a big book, and, you've got to understand it all. And poor old accountants, they've just spent the last 8 weeks learning a complete new set of legislation that came out for COVID-19. They've had to learn it all because the government decided to outsource their social security function to accountants. So we're all going to line up at Centrelink. They said, this is too hard. I know what. We'll put them on JobKeeper instead of JobSeeker. We'll send them all to the accountants. And so the accountants had to learn all the law. So they've got to learn all that. They've got to learn FBT. They've got to learn capital gains tax. They've got to learn income tax law. They've got to learn social security law. Well, one day I had to go through the crime sentences in procedures in Sentencing Act to determine whether there was a breach of superannuation law, and they expect accountants to know that. So, I'm full-time just in this one topic. The poor old accountants are full-time over 30 topics, so they can't know them all to that extreme level. So I'm there to just offer them assistance because they know 90% of what they need to know about self-managed super. But what about that next 10%? They can't commit a whole week for that next 10%. So I'm there just for that next 10%, really.
Okay, so you've identified a market gap, and you're filling that, and that's the new business.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to go back a bit. A couple of things that you may not know about Peter. Tell us about some of your hobbies and interests. I think you've got one there on your left hand.
Oh, okay. So I was told to bring this along. So this is a Rubik's Cube. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to look down as well as looking up at the screen. As you can see, it doesn't look too good at the moment, and just see what I can do with this damn cube. So, I do a lot of travel, and, I've been traveling, and what I decided to do was to stop drinking while I was traveling and instead learn to do Rubik's Cube just out of fun. This is a really poor quality Rubik's Cube, by the way. It's something you get from the markets. And but anyway, now another thing that I do is I don't do it anymore because I no longer live out at Camden, but I'm actually a qualified snake catcher. And if you actually Google Peter Johnson hygiene protocol for the care of captive snakes, you'll see I'm published with the National Parks and Wildlife Service in New South Wales. So I'm there now. New South Wales National Parks and Wildlife for hygiene protocol for snakes. And that was actually, this is interesting, that was virus protection, virus control for snakes for a virus known as Ophidium paramyxovirus. Now, Ophidium paramyxovirus is just bird flu for snakes because bird flu is avian paramyxovirus. So there you go. Not really much interest for people that are doing business, you know.
Well, I think it's sometimes, Peter, those things of points of interest that establishes connection. One of the things I'm always really big at is, yes, you can be a technical advisor and something like that, but unless you've got a connection with someone, you will then just quickly move along to the next advisor and the next advisor. So I think it's really important to show that the human element to it, you know, like the stereotyping accountants are boring. Not really. It's just you have a lack of interest in getting to know them. So here's an accountant who loves to do Rubik's Cube to keep his brain active and also getting out there. You're getting there?
A bit closer. Yeah. Just got to work out exactly where I'm at sometimes, you know.
You know, it's funny. I picked my own accountant. It was actually Warren Garth from Katz Accounting in Wyong because they like to have fun and they skied. And
water ski or snow ski?
Snow ski.
Oh, yeah.
And I am on the ski patrol down at Thredbo, and I remember riding a chairlift, and it was a beautiful day. I'm in my ski patrol uniform, and everybody wants to talk to you then when you're wearing those uniforms. A gentleman jumped on the chair, and he looked kind of sad, and I sort of said, what's the matter? And he said, skiing is fantastic, but I got to go back to Sydney. And I said, oh, really? Why is that? And he said, oh, look at that. I said, well, you know, why are you disappointed? He said, I got to go back to Sydney and I got to see my accountant. And he goes, you know, it's really boring. And I said, why don't you find an accountant who can ski? And he said, do you know any? And I said, as a matter of fact, I do. And I got a referral while I'm riding up the Krakenback quad share, the Kosciuszko Express. There's opportunities out there every time, so long as you've got a way to relate people. So next time I come across someone where we're talking about snakes or Rubik's Cubes or maybe a little bit of fun, I'll be able to introduce you.
There is a book, by the way. Everyone can learn to do this. There's a book, but you know, if you've got an autistic brain like I do, then you're going to learn it fairly quickly. But even if you're a 3-unit English type person, you will still learn it. It's just going to take you.
It's a process in it.
Yeah.
Again, a process or a system. So I want you to tell us about your business, where it was, how did you get it listed on the stock exchange? What are the things that you actually had to do to get it to that particular point?
It was quite easy for us because back in the late 80s, early 90s, actually, we had 2 boards on the stock exchange. There was a main board and there was a second board. So smaller companies were listed on a second board instead of the main board. There was this company called Santec Limited. And what they'd done, they had raised $4 million and they were developing a computer mouse that followed your eyes. So as your eyes moved, the mouse moved around the computer screen. They raised their $4 million. They spent it all. And they're at the point where you had to be in a brace stuck to the computer and they couldn't go any further. So they were now worth nothing, but they were listed on a stock exchange. So we just came up with a sneaky little way. It's called a backdoor listing. And so we got our business and we bought a heap of shares in this worthless company. Then we got our business and we sold it to that company for a heap of shares. So we allotted new shares in that company and it was already listed. And there's a lot of dead ones that go and then get relisted. My old company, I think, is now called Service Stream Limited. So if you look up Service Stream Limited and go through the history of that, you'll go right back to before that it was Garrison's Accounting Group Limited. Before that, David Gary Holdings Limited, and one of my business partners was David Gary. So that's how we did it. And at that point in time in early 93 or late 92, they moved all the second board companies to the main board. So bang. And then we had to comply with all the current listing rules. So they said you got 3 years and you either had to have, and the numbers could be wrong, it was a long time ago, you either had to have 500 shareholders, a profit of $2 million or net tangible assets of $5 million. So you had to have 2 of those in order to stay listed. And we managed that. So we got a lot of shareholders and we managed to get the profit. And so, yeah, they let us stay there. But of course, once you're there, you get looked at. You get looked at a lot. And in the end, a company called Challenger, and you would have heard of Challenger Annuities for sure, came to us and said, oh, wow, we had 10% of the accounting market. 10% of accounting firms in Australia were buying off us at that time. So it was huge. And they said, well, we want to get access to accountants. So we want your business. And we thought, Challenger, they're huge. They're great. So they put $5 million on the table. But instead of us taking that $5 million, going home and, having a party, this was 1999 by now, they put it into the business and they got 50%. So suddenly we're a minority interest. They effectively owned it. And then they went and bought all these other accounting firms. We ended up about the 7th biggest accounting firm in Australia. And they bought all these other accounting firms. And what they did was they borrowed off Challenger. They changed the name to Garrison's Accounting Group. They borrowed off Challenger. This is all public information, so that's why I can say what it is. And then one day, Chris Cuff, who was an absolute genius, he was the guy that made Colonial First State the best fund manager in Australia for 15 years. So his $9 million handshake from the Commonwealth Bank, because they bought Colonial First State. They thought they could do a better job than what Colonial could. But anyway, so he took his golden handshake, and then he took over the reins at Challenger and said, no, this is never going to make money. Because it wasn't making money. They bought the accounting firms. They learned that the accountants took all the profit as their salary. So there's no profit left for us. So he said, no, we're out of this. Give us all our money back. And then, of course, the accountants moved next door, put a shingle up. So all the clients went with it. So there was nothing left in the company. Now, we took our shares thinking we're going to make all this money, but it fell over. So in the end, I originally had, at the time of the takeover, I think I had about $1.5 million worth of shares myself. And I sold them for $3,000. That's what I got, $3,000. And then I was out on my own. Like I was relying on the dividends and the capital gains from these shares to set up my own accounting firm and to move forward. Suddenly I had nothing. Yeah,
$3,000. That's it.
Yeah, $3,000. I didn't have a mortgage, thankfully, but I had 2 kids at private school, had a Ferrari that I had to maintain, all this sort of stuff. And it was bloody difficult. I remember one year, my taxable income with 2 kids at private school and all that was $45,000. I got family tax benefit Part B. Thankfully, I did own my own home. It was a good home, it was a big home, and I was just building up a line of credit. I had a line of credit, so I was just living on a line of credit for about 3 years. Yeah, and then I set up more businesses, an accounting firm, and another business that was called CST. Sold out of the accounting firm in 2008, sold out of CST in 2017, and then I set up a AFSL called the SMSF Expert, and then I sold that to a listed entity. That's the one I'm presenting for now, and now I've just got Advisors Digest.
Do you think, besides property, do you think business is the greatest opportunity to grow your wealth?
Oh, there's in terms of opportunity, it absolutely has to be, because I couldn't go and get I could go and get a property and make some money out of it, but I did that once with 22 acres on Cannon Valley Way at Narellan. We absolutely killed it. We got 6 times our money back in 3 years, but we knew they were going to rezone this land. But to me, that's business. That's not property. And the only way CST, we started with 20 grand and sold it for millions. You're not going to do that with real estate.
Certainly couldn't save that sort of money either.
No, that's right. So real estate allows you to gear. That's the beauty of real estate. You can walk into a bank with 100 grand, they'll lend you 400 to invest 500. You can't walk into a bank with 100 grand and get them to lend you 500 for a business unless you've got the real estate to secure it. So, they do go hand in hand. The beauty of being listed is banks will lend you money unsecured. That's one good thing about being listed, is that, hey, here you go. Here's the money, because you're a listed entity. You're being audited. You've got systems and all that sort of thing in place. It's difficult for a small business to get that sort of funding, and banks almost always, they just want yourself handcuffed to them, all your assets provided to them as security. And if it falls over, you lose everything.
Yeah, I'm sure people are going through some very difficult times right now at the moment. So tell me, in that particular process where you got the company listed, you would have gone through some huge highs, but you also went through at the end when you had 1.5 million shares, and then you found out they're only $3,000. How did you deal with all of that?
Oh, well, what can you? Those shares actually cost me nothing, so I made a $3,000 capital gain on those shares, and I'd sold enough during my time, funded a house on an acre with a tennis court and all that sort of stuff. So that was, I had good times, and I focused more on the excitement of building new businesses than I did of the other one failing, and just said, well, start again. Now let's do it again. Yeah. And being listed it's interesting. Yeah, you do give away a lot. You do give away a lot so that you can sit at a dinner table at a dinner party and go, hey, I'm listed, because that's really the only benefit, other than getting unsecured money. But we had plenty of security anyway if we wanted to borrow, so it really wouldn't have mattered.
So tell me about this new venture then. You've started Advisors Digest.
Yeah.
What do you do there?
Well, it's just training accountants online. There's really no one doing it the way we do it, where I initially built it just for self-managed super fund auditors, because they've got a specific requirement of training they have to do, and no one offers it. So I said, well, hang on, you've got over 3 years, you've got to do this specific 40 hours in SMSF training, financial statement preparation training, and audit training, and people offer sort of bits of it all over the place, and then you've got to put it all together, collate it, and go, have I complied or not? I said, well, no, over 3 years, I'll give you exactly that, and I'll give you a certificate that says over the last 3 years, you've done exactly that. We then expanded it for specific self-managed super fund accountants as well. And now I've just opened it up. I've got a tax lawyer in-house now who's giving presentations every month, for a month actually. So every week we're doing a 1 hour presentation for accountants. And once again, we're actually giving them their exact requirements. So CA, CPA, IPA, they're the main accounting professional bodies, require us to do 40 hours a year. And we have to keep a CPD diary because, I did this, I went to that. And we're saying, well, hey, an hour a week, 4 hours a month, 10 months of the year, it's 40 hours. At the end of it, I'll give you a certificate that says you've done 40 hours and this is what you've done. It's just a stress that they don't have anymore to make sure that they get all of their CPD. And, it's sort of timely because COVID-19 means online is the go now. You can't do it other than online. So it sort of works. But the problem is they're all so busy at the moment doing JobKeeper, they can't do any training. They're doing so much work. Really, if your listeners, if you see someone out there at the moment, and their eyes they've got matchsticks in their eyes, they're probably an accountant who, over a 10-month period, July through to say May, or August through to May or June, would be able to deal with all their clients. That's how long it would take. But no, now they're being told they've got to deal with all of their clients in April and May on top of all that work. So April, May is when your tax returns were originally due on the 15th of May. So April, May is flat out for accountants. But instead now we had to do JobKeeper April, May, and now our tax returns are not due till the 30th of June. So they're just going to be hanging like that. I know they're all, the guys next door to me, I've got an accounting firm next door. No matter what time I turn up in the morning, they're here. No matter what time I go home at night, at the moment, they're here. I come in on a Sunday, they're here. They're just working so hard. So they can't come and do my training at the moment. But hey, we've all got to try our hardest, haven't we?
Look, I was chatting to my own accountant, and he had about 400 clients, and they went from they have some of those people on a system where we just pay monthly, which is great for their own cash flow. And some people, they did their work in every year and variations in between. But you're right, they had 400 people just constantly calling them. How do you deal with that? I don't think any business is really geared up to be going, what happens if? But anyway, we just sort of chatted to him and sort of said, Tim, what about if you came up and they were doing podcasting at the time. What about if you did a webinar? And so that was your 1 hour of giving advice to all 400 people. They could come on and watch the show, give examples, and then you started running the business where you were focusing on the clients who could actually afford to pay you. Because obviously there were some industries that still needed the advice, but no longer had the cash to be able to pay their bills. Because you're for an accounting firm looking to keep your business afloat and paying your staff and your suppliers and all that sort of thing. How do you do that? So it became very tough for them to make those types of decisions very instantly and deal with all the influx of inquiries. Very, very stressful time to be an accountant.
And a lot of them are still getting JobKeeper, which means their turnover's dropped, but their workload is exponentially increased. Yeah, important. So I do feel for them.
So I've got a couple of questions here from some of the listeners and stuff like that. Obviously, they're saying good morning to us and stuff like that. Tell me, why are you down to one person? Why do you run a business with just one person?
Well, I only need one person. I outsource stuff that other people can do. But, you know, I'm doing online training. It's on the talent pool. I do expect to employ someone fairly soon because, as I've mentioned to you, that I've got 700 accountants that have bought something off me in the last 15 months. And so now we're dealing with a lot of accountants. So that will change. But, you know, having been listed, one thing I've learned that questions you get asked by people go, oh, how big is your business? And this and that. And it's like, oh, my turnover is this. I've got 50 staff. And it all sounds great. But you know what? What lifestyle does it give you? And do you make enough money? Because, you know, I learned this as a young kid playing footy. They said the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And it's true. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. And, you know, if you can make a good living without all the hassle of a heap of people, doesn't look good in a dinner party, I admit. It's just me. No one else. It's just me. But, you know, I make more money. Well, actually, the most money I made was with 4 staff. I maxed out. You know, as we grew the listed entity, we actually made less. We thought we were kings of the world. We went and bought a drug business. We sold drugs. There's a brand out there called Herb Valley. We owned that. If we owned it now, we could sell them into China. We'd kill it. But, you know, it was great. We owned factory units and all this. But profit dropped. Profit dropped. It looked great at a dinner party. We own all this stuff, you know, but profit dropped. When I set up the next business, I made more money with only 4 people than what I did with 74 people. And now I could potentially make more money with just myself than I did with the 4. Certainly with one person, I know that within 2 years, now it took me 15 years to build that last business. Within 2 years, I will have this business more profitable than what my previous one was with maybe one person.
I think you've hit the nail on the head then. I remember when my mother and I had a business, it was an importing business. And when she first bought it, it was doing about $350,000, but it was all cash. It was in the 80s. She asked me to come and give up my full-time ski bumming career and come and do some sales for her. And we turned that into $1 million juggernaut. But when I look back to the times where we were happier, it was every Saturday when we got the $5,000 cash out of the till and we just threw it up in the air and just sort of went, wow, isn't it great? We put in a little bit of work. We had cash at the end. It had no bills. And when it was the $1 million juggernaut, it was contracts. It just wasn't as exciting. And you're right, the profit wasn't there. So we had all this extra stress, but little for us. So I think to the person who wrote in the question, it's really defined what is that sweet spot where you can actually make a comfortable living and still have enough time to enjoy it. Do you think that's one of the big things that you learn about, you know, like listing yourself and dinner parties and money coming in and fast cars and all that sort of thing to actually where you are right now, sort of going, you know what, you can have all that sort of thing, but I think this is what I prefer in my life.
Yeah. And you know, I'm nicking off after this and spending the day with my daughter. And, you know, I come in when I want. I mean, sure, I've got scheduled webinars. I can't do them, but a lot of my products are actually downloaded. So you actually download it in your own time. So I could easily run this business from Paris, Vegas, Ayers Rock. It really wouldn't matter. And hours that I want to do, I just got to turn up for the webinars. That's all.
And I think when I first started doing some research about you, I was already watching content that you'd already recorded a lot earlier. And so from a buyer's perspective, outlook on things, people can start consuming, even just getting used to you and what Peter's all about and whether or not I want to buy the product. If you've got content up there that they can look at, you don't actually have to be there. Whereas a traditional business, bricks and mortar, you only get paid for when you turn up.
Yeah, you got to be open. Imagine buying a cap. Yeah, you got to be there 7 days a week.
Well, I had a client bought a cafe a month before COVID. So you've still got all the expenses. I mean,
Yeah.
really timing and luck. Pete, thanks very much for joining us with us this morning. Where would people be able to, if you're an accountant watching this, you're watching the replay, where would people be able to find more about you?
Certainly, they could just look for Peter Johnson on LinkedIn. If you're an accountant in Australia, we're going to have mutual connections. Just Peter Johnson on LinkedIn. But my business is called Advisors Digest. So advisorsdigest.com.au. It's like Reader's Digest, but it's Advisors Digest. And whichever way you spell it's going to work, because all the research I've done is that both of them are valid. Advisors and advisors, they're both valid. So it's confusing. But yeah, ERS is the one I have registered, but I've taken the domain name for ORS and pointed it to ERS anyway. Yeah, so they'll just find me on the website.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much for joining us today, Peter. All right. My name is Glenn Kirkwood, aka That Referral Guy, signing off with a reminder to make, build, and share connections. I'll see you next time.